So I guess this week's anime analysis gets to be a lot easier since I only watched 3 series. I guess there wasn't really a whole lot of other stuff that happened. Just I had people over on Saturday to see my apartment. Mostly my brothers, and we played Brawl, and then a bunch of friends, and then a couple of people they also knew. So that was entertaining. And then there was also playing, getting back into Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword now that my Wii's back, and me needing to do that because if I keep putting that off, eventually I'm blah 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 blah. But then there's the anime I watched. So first of all, I watched the second season of Sekirei Pure Engagement, and that was pretty entertaining. I think I talked last week about the first season of Sekirei being kind of a refreshment after a lot of harem, ecchi anime that didn't quite sit well with me. You know, they weren't as compatible with my form of humor or my notions of entertainment. So, they weren't as entertaining to me personally. But, yeah, Sekirei seemed like a breath of fresh air. And Sekirei 2 was actually, it began pretty amusing. I think they started playing off the characters better, and I don't know, I've had chances to think about why Sekirei was so refreshing, but trying to discuss that in this video seems like it take a long time. So for Sekirei Season 2, I can at least say that I thought they pulled off some pretty good amusing humor in there. Things that actually got maybe not chuckles, but stifled, trying to not spit out the water I was drinking at the time, sorts of things. Just amusing in general, and the way it ended, well, it didn't end the series, but it didn't look like something that would. It looked like something that could. But now I know why people ask about Sekirei Season 3, and I'm kind of asking the same question too, because it's not a definitive ending, intentionally left where we're supposed to expect the 3rd season, and I guess that hasn't come out. I could hope that would be made. I mean, when I watched Working and commented on that, it was only like a couple weeks later that companies announced they were working on Working 2. And by Working, I also mean Wagnaria, the name of the US release? Yeah, there it is. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe me talking about this now, and a couple weeks from now, Sekirei Season 3 will be talked about. Or not. I don't know. We'll have to find out. This also had the OVA, and the OVA is kind of interesting because I'm not exactly sure when the appropriate time to watch it is. It's certainly fine to watch it after the 2nd season, but when the Pure Engagement OVA happens is actually in between the seasons, which was a little disorienting at first, but when you go into it knowing that in advance, it probably will help. Unless you watch it after the 1st season, and I think it works, but I'm not sure. It plays off of an interesting topic that became important in the 2nd season, so I don't know if that was supposed to be our introduction to that topic, or if, perhaps more appropriately, this is something that we're supposed to watch after that one and enjoy. But basically, it tells 2 little stories, and well, okay, those seemed a lot more ecchi than, you know, really more fan servicey than the series in general did, which is something that kind of makes me raise an eyebrow and overall just not care about it specifically, I guess. Not that I think there's something wrong with it, it's just that, well, what I wanted was actually the end of those stories, where they ended each of those stories on a rather appropriate note, or rather entertaining note, I thought. So it was an interesting OVA, and overall, I guess now I'm done with Sekirei. It was an overall enjoyable watch. Maybe not spectacular enough to work its way into my favorites, let alone my top favorites, but still a series that I can appreciate, and I could probably rewatch it without much problem. After that, I watched And Yet the Town Moves. It isn't And Yet the Town Still Moves, is it? No, it's And Yet the Town Moves. Yeah, I've got them on a pile on the floor yet. because and comes before the angel stuff, which means I pretty much have to shuffle the entire collection to work all of these in, and I've been putting that off, I admit. But anyways, I watched And Yet the Town Moves, and despite sometimes feeling like the humor was slightly misaligned with what I find funny, I actually found a lot of it to actually be quite amusing and chuckle-worthy. The main character kind of reminds me of Osaka from Ozymandias in a way. She's not exactly the same, but there's something about her that feels like a person out of place, and sometimes you wonder if there's really a person there, sort of. I don't know. That's a rather abstract way to think about it, perhaps, and I haven't really thought about it a lot myself. Only just the general impressions I had while watching it. And overall, I found it was a pretty enjoyable series, and I actually looked forward to seeing each new episode as stuff happened. But yeah, I'm not sure if comparing to Ozymandias is the appropriate way, if it's the appropriate comparison, but for now, I guess maybe there's some similarity in the way the humors in those series worked off. But it's not exactly the same, because it's definitely doing it in a significantly different way, and that's to be expected, since the way the cast of characters is designed would make that necessary, I guess. I don't know, I guess I can't think of a lot much else to say specifically about that without trying to go into details, I guess. So I'll leave it at that. Say that one I enjoyed. I actually enjoyed more than Sekirei. And then after that, I decided I should go back and watch Cromartie High School, partially because I believe Moyax on the Reddit DVD collection forum was recommending that to other people, and I've had it. I've needed to watch it. I made one attempt in the past, and something about the humor doesn't quite line up with what I expect, and that was my experience this time as well, although I did find more things about it amusing this time as I continued on through it. I think a part of the problem is that the way this anime begins, it seems... okay, so with Fullmetal Alchemist, right, Brotherhood was designed... It was obvious from the get-go that Brotherhood was designed for people who had watched Fullmetal Alchemist, but it knew that it didn't need to... It shouldn't use that as a crutch, so to speak, and so it retold the important parts of the story from Fullmetal Alchemist before continuing on to the different branch that was Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood that was closer to the original manga, right? So I think part of the problem with Cromartie High School is it's based on comics that I think are some manga that were really popular, and it kind of uses those as a crutch, where Fullmetal Alchemist kind of worked around that, right? You can watch Cromartie and say, yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely done in a way where it expects people to read the manga, because it'll be like, oh, this event which explains this character, well, you should go read the manga for that. And it does that a couple times in the first episode, and then after that, I think the next problem after that is it introduces, perhaps it introduces gags in a 4-strip format a little too rapidly, perhaps, where it's kind of hard to care about some of the stuff from the very beginning. And what I mean by a lot of this stuff is, for example, you know, Cromartie High School, one of the things about it is that there's a bunch of weird characters in there. And I didn't really care about much or of any of them until I'd seen like half the series or so and gotten to see some of those characters shine in their more important moments. And I don't know if I ever got around to thinking Mekazawa was particularly spectacular. In fact, walking away from that, it's definitely Freddy who ended up being my favorite character. which kind of annoys me because I think at the same time the anime was kind of putting him out there to be your favorite character in a way. But I have to admit that baseball episode or episodes were funny. And in particular because of Freddy. But yeah, otherwise, this time I was able to stay with the pacing of the series and find jokes here and there that I definitely enjoyed, while feeling that the pacing overall made it kind of an average series, probably about as enjoyable as Sekirei, or Sekirei Season 2, but that's for me personally, and I'm not quite sure if the same could be said for other people. If you enjoyed Sekirei, whether or not you would enjoy Cromartie High School is a completely orthogonal concept. Or is it perpendicular? Aren't those... Oh, god damn it. Here I go. Losing track of what terms mean. So, the humors in the two series are very different. The storytelling is completely present in Sekirei and non-existent in Cromartie because it's a comedy. Even less storytelling than even in And Yet the Town Still Moves. And Yet the Town Moves. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm slipping up so much. It's sort of like when you watch somebody on the ice and once they slip once it just gets worse and worse and worse. Oh well, back to Cromartie High School. The other thing I wanted to mention was that opening tune actually got pretty catchy. And I'm wondering if another part of that is, it kind of reminds me of the sixth ending to Bleach, sort of. I think it's a very subtle thing. Maybe the melodies being vaguely similar in the part where it shows the people walking in the Cromartie opening, where with maybe the... I don't know how to describe that part of the song from the sixth ending of Bleach, but yeah, it's kind of strange. But I've at least verified that they're not the same group, just because I knew that I was going to comment about this, and so I made sure to look that up in advance. Haha. And then I forgot the name of like a couple of the anime I watched. But oh well. Anyways, that's all the anime I watched this week. For the next week, I know I want to start off watching Akiken. It's not rated particularly high, so I'm not going to expect a lot from it, but its premise is about as absurd as Midori Days. So I guess what I'm expecting is probably something like Midori Days, except not executed as well, perhaps? Maybe with a more ecchi tone? I don't know. I'll find out in probably an hour or so when I put it on. But yeah, there we go. That's all the anime I watched and the anime I'm going to at least start watching for next week.